Ladies and gentlemen, WUSA 9's Howard Bernstein.
And good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday, and thanks so much for joining us to this virtual town hall on mental health matters. Now, closed captioning is being provided today, so you can just click the symbol out there, which says CC at the bottom of the screen if you want to read along, in case that helps you. And I want to welcome our moderators for today's virtual town hall on mental health. First moderators, my esteemed colleague, I love working with her, Annie Yu. We have a great time every morning on Get Up DC from 4:25 to 7 a.m. along with Allison Seymour and of course Tony Perkins. And Annie's been in the DC market. She's from here. She grew up here. She's been on TV for almost 20 years and just really a great member of the WUSA 9 team. We're very proud to have her here. She does a lot of community work as well. So very, very honored to be introducing Annie. And our other moderator this morning is Bobby Gailes. And Bobby's a native New Yorker like me. So, we've got that, but we both make Washington home now. And Bobby is been on the radio, for a little while longer than Annie, 30 plus years. He's worked in New York and some other big markets, San Francisco, and now here in the Washington region. And Annie, of course, I forgot to mention, a mom of one and happily married. Bobby also loves spending time with his family. He does voiceovers and acting and writing and does a lot of time on his own time helping youth, both in New York and here now in the Washington area. And I'm just going to read Bobby's philosophy on life before we get started. It says, your success in life is measured not by what you do for yourself, but what you do for others. The more people you help become successful, the more successful you become by default. And with that, Annie and Bobby, good morning. Take it away.
Good morning.
Wow. Thanks, Howard. Good morning, everybody. Hey, Bobby.
Good morning.
So I just want to piggyback off of what Howard just mentioned, your quote, your mantra for life. Wow. I loved that. And it's great to be doing this event with you because you're an optimist, and I feel encouraged by your life's philosophy because it's a great outlook on life in general, but especially for what we're doing today. We're focusing our attention, our focus on mental health, and really helping people with options and letting them know that they are never alone, right? So I just want to send you kudos and love for that. What a wonderful philosophy for life.
Thank you very much, Annie. It's a pleasure to be here. And like you said, this is a very important issue. And that quote was something that my mentor talked to me about, helping other people. And as I grew up in the business to help other people become successful, and in turn, it'll come back to you. It's like paying it forward for the most part. And with what we're doing here today, making people aware and giving them a chance to talk about mental health, mental illness, maybe some of the problems they may have, it gives them a voice. And we have some esteemed panelists here that I think will address those issues. So
yes, that's right. And I'm with you. I'm an optimist, but we're going to need some help today, Bobby. And so that's why we have the panelists here with us. And I love this. We've got a diverse panel of experts joining us on this important conversation. Now, I'm going to kick things off with introducing Miss Valerie Brown. Now, I have personally known Valerie for 25 years, over 25 years, and I can attest to her wonderful energy, her nurturing ability. I may cry because I love this woman so, so much, but she has not only talked me through significant moments, but I know she works so closely with people through their significant moments, and she does it from the heart. She's a highly accomplished leader. It would take me a long time to get through all of her accomplishments, but I'm going to highlight a few of her things. Valerie is an executive coach and life leadership development consultant, and she's also a corporate trainer based in Fairfax, Virginia. She works with everybody, people of all ages, and I'm talking C-suite, senior execs, middle management, high potential employees, you name it, she works with them. She works in the private sector as well. So the really unique thing about Miss Valerie Brown is that she has an expansive federal career background. So she's worked with the Department of Defense, Office of the Secretary of Defense, and as a U.S. Army officer. So her leadership and coaching in the federal, military, corporations, and private sector really gives her that in-depth knowledge and the opportunity to work with people in all of these industries. And above all, I said it at the top, she is inspiring, empowering, effective, straightforward. She's insightful, and she has helped many of her clients get that clear focus they need to achieve their goals and set those goals. She can identify behaviors and actions that lead to growth, professional growth and personal growth. She can help you with self-awareness. And the most important, I think, is sustained effective improvement in performance. So keeping that long-term. So we are very fortunate to have Valerie join us today and help many people get some answers and much needed help. And with that, I'm going to, if we can just give Valerie a round of applause for joining us today. Yay, go Val. Bobby, I'm going to kick it to you now for our other panelists.
Okay, my next panelist is a mentor, a educator, a researcher, a coach. She believes in giving back as well. Also, she's from Howard University, which HU, you know, Dr. Kalechi Fluid. I hope I said that right. Kalechi Fluid. She's a staff member of the Psychology Associate and the Director of Outreach at Howard University's Counseling Service. She's a 3-time HBCU alum, earning her bachelor's degree from Winston-Salem State University and a master's from Bowie State University and a doctorate from Howard University, Dr. Kalechi Fluid. Give her a round of applause. Can we hear? Yeah, I guess we can, huh? Okay, also I'm gonna introduce Miss Marcy Fairbanks. She serves as a director of family services with Capital Caring Health. She supports, and this is really important, she supports the counseling staff in meeting the needs of patients and their families at end of life, as well as the needs of bereavement. And this can be a very daunting task because she's dealing with families who understand that the end of life is coming, and you have to have a big heart and you have to really care about people in general. So Marcy Fairbanks, welcome to the panel. So with that, Annie?
All right, well, I'm excited. We have a very diverse panel this morning. And as many of you know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I think, you know, more than ever, this time is so important because as I reflect back to just this past year, we as a country have been through so much, and we've been dealing with a lot of personal challenges as well on top of that. And I think the message has to be clear, Bobby and everybody, that no one should ever feel alone, that there are resources and help available. And it's really time to erase the stigma connected to mental health and raising awareness. And so I'm really pleased that we're able to hold this event with all of the panelists today. We have a lot to discuss. We have a lot of questions that we've gathered from our participants ahead of today's event. So there's also going to be a live chat as well. So feel free to chime in with any thoughts, additional questions. We're going to try to get to as many as possible. And I also want to make this clear that this is a safe space. We're going to have a great conversation today. And Valerie, I want to start with you because I know that you have been working with people of all ages throughout this pandemic. What seems to be on the minds of everyone that you're talking to?
So currently what I'm hearing from my clients of all ages, millennials and going forward, is how do I protect myself, my mental health, my well-being? And so we talked through that. You know, number one is everyone's really busy and everyone's really doing. So that sitting still moment isn't coming very naturally for most people. And so I share with them, you know, you first have to know you have to make yourself a priority. And for many, that's very challenging. For some reason, they've got the kids at home, they've got, you know, loved ones, they're going through people that are maybe passing away. There's just so much going on and they feel overwhelmed. So I'd say, you know, first, let's talk about that. Make yourself a priority. Block time for yourself. That's important. Okay, like if you're going to an appointment, you're going to make that appointment, whether it's an important meeting, a doctor's appointment, block that time on your calendar for you. And nothing comes before that unless it's super urgent. And you look at your calendar, you find what works for you and be consistent. And so I share that with them. You have to learn how to disconnect. We're in this age of electronics. There's email, there's text, there's so many things going on. So you really have to take a step back, catch your breath and disconnect. And for many, that's hard. So we talk through various techniques, putting a chimer on your phone to let it go to sleep, so you know to let it go. But most importantly, I find if you just sit back and acknowledge how you're feeling, your emotions, because we don't check in. We'll check on others, but we don't check in on ourselves. So when you check in with you, you're checking in to really gain awareness around, what am I feeling? What are my emotions? And you keep a log or some type of, some people call it journaling. I tell my clients it can be called self-notes, whatever works for you. But log in on those papers what you're feeling, what that day looks like for you. It's okay to express that. And then find a support group or someone that you can share. Don't, like you said earlier, Anna, about the stigma, there's a source out there, whether it's a counselor or a therapist, really reach out. The big ask for most is saying, I really want to talk with someone, but I don't feel comfortable doing it. But there's such a diverse group of counselors and therapists out there that it's easy to find someone to connect with. And I'm very honest, sometimes we have to take that step back and say, what's going on with me? Let me just catch my breath and share and be okay with that. And I'm finding that's very helpful. It helps to remove, I call it the big O, that big overwhelming feeling that we're walking around carrying right now.
Yeah, I think that's so crucial. Setting boundaries is also so hard for people. Do you have any tips on where you can start with that? I mean, small things, setting boundaries, having the guts to say, all right, this is going to prevent me from having so much stress. Let me do this. Where do you go? Like, how do you set those boundaries?
Of course. So setting boundaries, for some, we can set the boundaries, but then we have to be honest and enforce the boundaries, because that is different. We can set them and then we'll let people start sliding in, and then we'll make time for them or whatever. So it's important to be comfortable with your boundaries, be realistic, set realistic expectations, share with your friends and your family members and others that when this is my window that I'll be working or I'll be on the computer. And then after that, I'm done, and really stick to that. We have to hold ourselves accountable. And sometimes we need help. We can ask others, hey, help me hold myself accountable. We share with those loved ones and friends, and they really respect our boundaries when they care about us. They want us to be well. They want us to take a walk. They want us to shut down. So once we set that boundary, we really have to work hard to enforce it. That really becomes accountable to self. And sometimes being accountable to self can be a little bit challenging because there are other things start to creep in. So holding ourselves accountable, really telling ourselves that we're going to set that boundary and nothing's going to come before that unless it's super, super urgent. And by that, I mean, like, we've got a real crisis or something. But other than that, we're really going to hold ourselves accountable and be comfortable with saying no in a gentle way. We don't have to say a hard no, but we do say, you know what, this is important. This is my time. This is my time.
Wow, that's awesome.
Annie, I was going to add in an additional comment to piggyback on Valerie. I think, it's really important to recognize that this pandemic was this giant pause button. Many of us prior to the pandemic were kind of on this treadmill of life, right? Keeping up this frenetic pace and not really taking that moment to recognize our own emotions, right? Because we were constantly busy. Our schedules were constantly booked. And so this pause button and the stillness that it created has really caused a lot of surfacing feelings and emotions that might have otherwise been squashed. So I think it's an opportunity to kind of break through this mental health stigma that we have experienced for a really long time. We recognize from a medical health standpoint that we need to do well visits as well as sick visits. And I think this pandemic points to the fact that we need to be recognizing, we need to consider our mental health in a similar way, right? We shouldn't wait for a moment of crisis in order to seek support. We need to be looking for opportunities to connect and engage, whether it would be with a professional or with supportive friends and colleagues, to really be open to express ourselves and recognize we all feel the same feelings. We're not alone in the feelings that we're experiencing, and sharing them is going to create connection that leads towards healing.
Yeah, I think both of you hit so many great points, and I felt it. Like I need to hold myself accountable, because I think throughout this year, especially, we have been waking up, hitting the ground running. We were machines on autopilot, trying to do everything to keep our families safe. If you were essential, you were going into work. You were doing everything you can to survive, or holding things down at home with the kids. You really didn't stop and think, what's my body going through? How am I doing? And do a mental check on yourself. So those are such great points. Very good points.
I want to add something to that also, because Annie, like you said, we do the same thing. We get up, we get the ground running, and even through this pandemic for about a year or so, we've been locked down too, to some degree, but we've been more concerned about our parents, our children. My wife's an essential worker. She's been worried about me. So like you said, we have to take a look at ourselves as well. I think I want to move on to the next question. Is that okay? Okay, good. So I wanted to move on to Dr. Fluid. We've been in this pandemic for about a year or so, lockdown. Restrictions are starting to drop now, where people can maybe not mask outside. People can start to travel. But there are those who really don't feel comfortable going outside. How do you address this? How do you talk to people and tell them, okay, well, take baby steps. The vaccine, are you vaccinated? What's your take on this?
Well, I think that's important. I think you just highlighted the first thing, which is baby steps, right? We were transported into this pandemic that many thought will be weeks, maybe potentially months, but we're a year and 2 months in, right? And so it's really taken a hold of our life and our everyday experiences. And so it's really important for you to check in with yourself. It's really important for you to say to yourself, how do I best navigate today, right? What is the best way for me to do that? And a lot of times the best way for you to do that is to take baby steps. And so even as you're trying to get reacclimated back into the world, naturally, there's going to be some anxiety that comes along with that. You have been in your bubble with your family in that space for over a year, and now you're having to share that space with other people who you don't know. And in the past, a stranger may not have even impacted you in a certain way, but now you're thinking, oh my goodness, how do I do that? How do I even grocery stores or concerts or things that you used to enjoy? You're now much more hyper aware about how many people are around you, how close people are to you. When someone coughs or if they're sneeze, we're more hyper aware of these things that we would have never given any thought a year ago. So I think that's the first thing, is to take baby steps and to find your comfort level. And when you hit that comfort level, to be all right saying, you know what, I'll go back home today and we can try this again tomorrow. You don't have to try to relive 1 year in one day.
Exactly.
I like that. I like the baby steps tip, because it is, for some people, a legit fear of going out. They can get anxiety over those common activities like going to the store again, riding public transportation, being in a crowded area, and things like even going back to work. I mean, I've been going in, so it's okay, but I know people who are working from home, this is all very jarring too, because it's been a year. So, so those are great points. I'm going to open up our next question to Marcy Fairbanks, or anyone who wants to weigh in. But, sadly, we have seen many of our family and friends lose beloved members of their family or friends, and experience heartache after losing someone to COVID. And dealing with that tremendous loss is hard enough. But during COVID, we've seen people lose their loved ones and not be able to actually hold an actual funeral, go see their loved ones. What's the message there to those who are grieving that big loss or really can't make sense of it all?
Yeah, this is a really significant concern that we've just seen become an even bigger issue for many individuals throughout the course of this past year. And I think, it's really important to recognize the fundamental importance that funerals and memorial services and remembrance opportunities have had for closure for individuals who've lost a loved one. And so the absence of those opportunities has created a real void. Like, did the person really die? or, you know, there's not that sense of closure that really has offered individuals the opportunity to progress in their grief journey. So what I encourage individuals to do is to really reach out and find a grief counselor. Grief is a very unique and complicated series of emotions. And I think this year more than ever, we're seeing a significant increase in what we call complicated grief reactions. And that's really because we're grieving multiple things, right? We're not only grieving our loved ones, but we're also grieving the individual activities and things that used to provide comfort to us when we had difficult emotions, like we weren't able to do the self-care practices that we had employed prior to the pandemic. So here at Capital Caring Health, we have very high qualified grief counselors who can support individuals on their grief journey when they have lost a loved one and offer the opportunity of open expression in a safe place so that they can be really candid about the myriad of emotions that are felt. You know, you can run the gamut of feeling really angry and really sad and even a sense of relief when your loved one has died, especially given the medical journey that they might have experienced, or even the suddenness. You know, COVID deaths were often very unexpected, and it creates a different level of trauma for individuals who are the survivors. So at Capital Caring Health, we offer free grief support services for individuals within the community. They don't have to have been attributed to any of our services. And we recognize that it is important to journey with individuals. And we're really glad that this service is widely available within our service area.
Anybody else want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing that I have noticed in addition to the emotions that Marcy shared is that a lot of my clients are feeling guilty as part of that grief process, which is very interesting. They feel guilty because they weren't there. They feel guilty because they talked to them about getting vaccinated and they didn't. And then, you know, they would say they've given so much and then they died alone. So there's a big guilt that I see that clients are carrying as well, Marcy. So thank you.
And
Yeah.
I think I also want to echo the point about the importance of the celebration. So the homegoing services, the funerals, that things that were part of our ritualistic ways of coping with death, ways to mourn one togetherness. And I think if there's anything the pandemic has really taught us, it's the importance of community support and the importance of support and connectivity. And so what I offer to people who didn't have the opportunity to bury their loved ones is now restrictions are opening up. And so maybe you find new ways to memorialize that loved one. Maybe you find new ways to honor them on their birthday or a holiday that they really enjoyed. Maybe you have a candlelight visual, or you create a scholarship, or you plant a tree. I think one of the things that COVID has taught us is that we're going to have to find new ways to be able to do those things. And so it really does give us an opportunity to be creative in the way in which we decide to hold our loved ones near and dear to us. So that's what I would offer in this space.
Does anyone have any insight or tips on, you may not be the one grieving the loss, but you are a bystander, you are a close friend of the person grieving. What can you do to help your friend or your family member who is grieving?
Yeah, if I could speak to that. I think it's really important to recognize that grief is an individual and unique journey. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. You know, oftentimes there's these cultural norms or mores that we feel we have to adhere to certain expectations. And I think the principle of boundaries is really important. Boundaries not only for the grieving individual, but also for those who are trying to support that individual through their grief experience. And recognizing that there are going to be times when that individual is not able to engage or connect the way that we would like for them to. And that it's really not about us, right? It's really about being a presence to bear witness to the pain that the survivor is feeling. And just being someone who provides an empathetic, compassionate presence can offer much more opportunity for healing than any words. Oftentimes, as supporters of grievers, we feel responsible to somehow fix things, and that's impossible. It's impossible. The only thing that would ever fix someone's grief is if their loved one were to walk through the door again. And we all know that that is not going to happen. So in recognizing your words are not going to fix the problem, kind of lessens the burden of responsibility for us and just opens us up to be able to be that supportive and caring presence for the survivor.
Yeah, I think all of us know someone who has passed away from COVID-19, whether it's a family member or a friend or a coworker, and it really it has an impact on everyone, you know. And so that's another way of us to kind of, as I want to segue to this next topic, Valerie, you had mentioned about the vaccines. I know people who have taken the vaccine. I know people who are not going to get the vaccine because they don't trust it. Friends and family members just won't get the vaccine. Maybe because they don't think it's going to help. Maybe because they think that it was, they came up with it too soon. But how do you address this? How do you tell people that the vaccine is what's going to get us back to normalcy for the most part, in some respects? So Valerie, why don't you go ahead and talk on that, since you mentioned the vaccines just previously.
Absolutely. You know, I full transparency, you know, I was, you know, I wanted to make sure that I knew everything. So what I share with people when I hear them say, I'm not getting vaccinated, I ask them, you know, well, what's going on? And then we walk through that. It's best to get all the information, go to all the websites, the CDC, you know, talk to your family, your family care provider and things like that. Really arm yourself with the information and then assess the risk for yourself. That's the best way to really do it. But I think when you really sit down and get all the information, you find that the vaccines are safe, and you share that the vaccines are safe and the risk is definitely, there isn't a risk, it's really safe. And so you go out and you promote it. And that's what I've been doing. But I did do my homework too. You know, there are concerns, it's new. And when something's new, like in my coaching, people tell me it's new, it's scary, it's unknown, I don't know enough about it. But it's definitely when you arm yourself with the information, I think you make the right decision. And that's what I share.
And I think that,
go ahead, Annie.
oh, I'm sorry. And I think that really speaks to Valerie's point earlier, is it takes work, and it's holding yourself accountable. So it's working through those scary emotions and unsettling emotions, but really it comes down to arming yourself with information and doing your part by researching what this is going to be doing to your body. And we talk about vaccines and we talk about the importance of it as we, you know, stay on this road to recovery. But you don't have to be a parent to empathize with, you know, what our children have had to go through either during this time. And, you know, we're having this discussion right now. Should our kids be vaccinated? That is a big factor in getting them back to some sense of normalcy. But my little one, she's 8, and I'm sure many of you can feel this too, that she's expressed concerns and fears about the virus itself, and like why she has to wear this mask and why we have to be hunkered down at home. But as they prepare to get back to in-person learning, what's the best way to prep our kids, our young kids especially, that you know, mentally getting them prepared for the fall, because we've had this whole year of adjusting and keeping them in a bubble?
I think one of the first things that's going to be really important is just to remind ourselves how resilient kids are. And I think as a mother of 3 little ones and having watched them over this last year, they really do have the ability to pivot. Right. So having that conversation and saying, you know, school is no longer going to be online. We're going to be in person, and we're going to be on the screen, and getting them prepared for that. I noticed that my daughter, who's really the only one that's in virtual school, was able to pivot and like figure it out. And she would convey to me that she missed her friends, and she didn't understand why she couldn't play, and she didn't understand why they couldn't be in person. And I would just try my best in her language, she's 4, to try to explain to her why it is that we had to do these things the way that we needed to do them. And so I think the first thing is to really recognize that even as we prepare them to go back mentally, it's the same thing. We're really just reintroducing them to the world as it is, not as it was, but as it is. And so that requires masks and washing of hands and social distancing. It requires us to check in with our child. It requires us to put back in their process of scheduling, right? Because you used to be able to have 30 minutes to get them ready, geared up, but now you have to get in traffic, they have to get in car seats. For some kids, it's got to be reacclimation back into vehicles, right? So what does it mean to get in a car seat? What does it mean to get out of the car seat? What does it mean to get back into that line, to get into school and to greet people? And we used to hug, and now maybe we wave, or we do an elbow to elbow. Maybe we just do our distance smile. So it's just reacclimating them to the world as it is today, not as it was, and always holding their hands and checking in with them as we go. So scheduling is important, pulling out those things in advance, like we used to do, making our lunches, getting them prepared for the day the night before, getting a good night's rest, checking in with them when you pick them up for the day, and processing with them in their language, what is it that they need and the support that they may.
That's good. That's good. I like that last tip. So what you're saying, Dr. Fluid, is basically give our children more credit. And you're right. They're so resilient. I don't know why we constantly need to be reminded of that they are resilient and that they're able to pivot. What a great reminder of that. Before we jump into the next question, Bobby, I just want to briefly mention again that we do have a Q&A section here where you can ask questions or weigh in, express your thoughts, ask additional questions to the ones we already have. And I also want to say thank you again to Capital Caring Health for joining us today, because this is an important discussion that we're having. So Bobby, you want to kick it to the next question?
You know, and just like we get our kids ready for school, we have to get ourselves ready to go back into the work area. And anyone's open to, anyone can answer this question. It's about, how safe do you feel when you go back to work? How do you get people to feel comfortable? We can take the vaccine as an example. Some people took the vaccine, some didn't, but you don't know that. You don't know who got vaccinated, who didn't. So how do you alleviate people's fears of going back to work or going back into the workplace when they don't know whether their coworker got the vaccine or not? And Marcy or Dr. Fluid, you can start.
Sure, I'll start that one if that's okay. Mm-hmm. I think it's important first to recognize the significance that social anxiety has on everything that we're talking about today, whether it's with children or with adults, right? We've all had some experience of trauma related to so many transitions over this past year plus. So with that being said, I think, again, it's the principle of information, right? So if you're an employee, you need to understand what your organizational expectations are related to this transition back into the workplace. There's going to be great disparity between different businesses, different organizations, and what their expectations are. So get informed. What are the expectations and how can you make that transition successfully? Sometimes it might even require that we think a little outside of the box. And if your organization offers access to employee assistance programs, you might want to actually work with what we call EAP, if it's available, to work through some of those social anxieties that you might be experiencing. Or talk to your peers, because I guarantee you, you are not alone in whatever concerns that you are feeling. And so having that open dialogue and being informed and fueled with information about what the requirements are is going to help you be able to take those incremental steps. And hopefully you have a period of transition, right? It's not like, oh, Monday, you're back in the office 100%. Hopefully your organization is offering some transition plan for you to reorient yourself.
I love that, the last piece you said about the transition. I think that is a crucial reminder because, you know, we want to work hard, we want to give it all we've got, but you can't go from 0 to 60 all of a sudden. You got to gear up and work your way there, or you could burn out. And that's what I want to ask you about is the burnout. So, you know, some of us have been going in as per usual throughout the pandemic, holding it down and doing the best we can while maybe our colleagues are working from home. But there's a sense of guilt that I think some people place on themselves that, you know, I can't take any time off. I can't, you know, take a mental health day because I have to get this done. I have to go into work. Any insight or tips on how to deal with that sense of guilt that, yeah, you need to take a break?
I think for me, it's a reminder that you can't pour from an empty cup. And as much as we want to give and be there for others and support others and, journey with others, we have to check in with ourselves. As you continue to give, you pour out of yourself. And if you're not finding ways to get poured back into, then you find yourself depleted. And so what that feeling of guilt may now shift to feelings of being overburdened or feelings of anger, right? And disappointment that someone has now made you get to this point where you're burnt out. So really reminding ourselves, going back to the initial question of mental health and how do we even grapple with all of that mental health is just as important as physical health, that we really do have to look at ourselves as whole beings and not parts. And so really just reminding ourselves that in order for me to be the best me that I can be, I have to take care of myself. And that's not just only physically, but mentally and social, emotionally. So I think that's the first thing to offer is that, yes, that is real. That guilty feeling is real. The overburden of the pandemic is real. All of these other mental health factors that may be individualized to your own homes, those are real things. These are not facetious feelings. However, as I prepare to now transition back into what is my new world, I need to take care of myself in order for me to be there for others.
And, I think also something that's top of mind, those are great points, Dr. Fluid, I love it. I think as we prepare to head back into work, some are feeling, unsure about their position at work. Maybe they're not feeling motivated to get back into the swing of things. Dr. Fluid or Valerie or Marcy, anybody, how can we feel more secure and motivated to get back into it, especially if you're unsure about your position at work?
So I'll start this. I just think that from one point, when we go back into the workforce, Marcy referenced the transition period. And a lot of people are concerned. I'm seeing my clients, and it's not about necessarily if someone's vaccinated, they don't want to go back to work in the office because they feel like I've had an opportunity to really be around my family. I'm not in rush hour traffic. So they're actually contemplating, do I want to go back into that office? I'm worthy, I'm valuable, I'm an asset. So they should work with me to have more time at home with my family. So I'm really hearing a lot of that. So most of them, I'm finding they're not really as concerned about the position. They're concerned about the time and the flexibility when they go back. So they've got transition. Most of my clients, they at a different level, and they do have transition plans, or they've created the transition plans. But some of their employees are saying, I've been working from home. I'm working harder. I'm working way past the normal hours. And that's actually problematic though, because I'm listening to a lot of people, they're on the computer 9, 10, 11 hours a day. And so I say, slow down and give yourself permission to keep that boundary, enforce that boundary. So when they're thinking about going back in the office, it's more of a challenge of, I don't know if I want to be in the office 5 days a week, but not because of COVID, but because I recognize I've had some downtime with my family and I'm connected. And I'm enjoying that piece of that new connectedness I found. So it's a very interesting dynamic. I have not had a client really pose the question about position. It's more about my time. And if I'm not going to be afforded some type of hybrid, I'm going to look elsewhere because I want to stay present for my family now because I'm actually enjoying it. So Marcy had said earlier about how people are finding more about themselves, that awareness within themselves because of COVID. And so people are realizing, yes, I have to sustain, I need money, but I also want, these relationships are even more important than I realized they maybe were from the very beginning. So I'm seeing a lot of awareness around those type of things.
Yeah, and Valerie, if I could just chime in, I think it really speaks to our reprioritization, right? We always, in principle, knew that our family was a priority, but I think practically, that wasn't always the reality. And so because of this pandemic and forced stay-at-home orders, we recognize largely we enjoy our families, right? Even if there are some conflicts and challenges with boundaries, like work-life balance looks different when you're working from home. But if you're in an industry where that has been successful, then obviously the natural question would be, well, why can't I continue this? You know, why do I have to now travel 3 hours a day in order to go into an office to do the same thing, right? And so I think it offers up an opportunity for employees to have conversations with employers.
Discussion.
Yeah, and for employers, if they're open to it, to think differently about what the workplace can look like, so that we can afford people a better opportunity to have a stronger work-life balance.
It's interesting. The pandemic has brought a lot of loss to people, but it's also brought a lot of change and shifting, new rules and a new way of life. And that really speaks to that piece about your employer employee relationship, kind of reconfiguring what can we do moving forward. Another piece of the pandemic was, you know, okay, so for myself, I'm in the sandwich generation. I actually care for my elderly parents. They are in my home. I also have a younger child, as I mentioned earlier. And so throughout the pandemic, I had like both spectrums, both ends of the spectrum. And my parents were terrified, as many elderly folks were, of going outside. They developed this fear of going outside, touching anything. They were wiping down groceries. And so that has stuck. And my parents are stubborn, and I keep telling them, it's okay. We're back to being somewhat safe again. You don't have to do all this. How can I help them and calm their anxiety and de-escalate?
I think, you know, I'll get the conversation started. I think it's really the same principle as when we're thinking about our children and the transition moving forward. It's really about doing things incrementally. We can't rip the Band-Aid off, right? That would invoke trauma and anxiety and more fear. So it's really about thinking about what could we do intentionally? Like today, how about we walk to the mailbox, right? Or let's get in the car and go for a drive to the park. And do some incremental intentional activities that help people re-engage in some good practices that then with confidence, they're going to be able to then take the next step, right? They may not be ready to go to the grocery store today, right? But maybe they're willing to drive with you when you go in the grocery store, right? And so it's thinking about it in those baby step ways that are going to help people feel more confident about moving forward.
So, I would agree with that. You know, I would always say, you know, validate their concerns, you know, be honest, say, you know, I really hear you. And then, like Marcy said, you know, do the baby steps. And on my side, I just saw my mother for the first time in a year and a half because she did not want me to come home. She said, no, I'm scared. And that was a lot. So I just returned from North Carolina visiting with her, and it's been a year and a half. Yes, I'm vaccinated, and she was too, but she was very, very scared. And the only person she would let in her house was my sister, who lives 20 minutes away, and her grandkids. So that fear with elderly people is very real. But even now, my mom, she didn't want to go to anywhere. She said, hey, we're inside, we're good. And so I respected that. So she would walk out to the mailbox. She said, I'll go check the mailbox today since you're here. And that was about it. Or she'll roll her little recycle down the driveway. But it was her comfort level. And I told her, I really hear you. I understand. Because they do, you know, you want to acknowledge their concerns and their fears and their challenges, because they're real to them.
I like that. Validate their feelings and the incremental steps. That is huge. Thank you. I know that was also a question from our participants as well. Any final thoughts? Anybody wants to, want to weigh in on anything or ask additional questions?
It's interesting because we talk about parents, and unfortunately, my mother has the opposite effect. She just can't wait to get out. And so I had to slow her down and say, look, you have to slow down a little bit, because she's running all over the place, beauty shop, get her nails done, you know, and she's 83 years old. So I'm like, just make sure you have your mask on, just slow down a little bit. And so I guess it just really depends on the support that you've given your parents. And because my mother's in New York, so I haven't seen my mother in over a year and a half. But you know, we do duo calls, but it's the support that I've given her during this pandemic about what to do, how to do it, the precautions to take. And so she said, okay, I'm good now. I think you got your shot, I got mine, we're good. So I guess it just really depends on how you prepare your parents during this pandemic for when things open up.
Well, Bobby, I need your mom to call my mom and maybe encourage her, hey, let's go out, get our nails done and our hair done. Yeah. I just think we gained so much out of this conversation, and even the fact that we're having this is a huge step in the right direction, because it's hard. I think, you know, it's really that time as we emerge from this pandemic that it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, because it is time to be happy. And, you know, I think we live in this like social media text world. I can't tell you how therapeutic it is to pick up a phone and call a friend and just be going off about the day, and you feel like, wow, I feel cleansed. And that is a form of, for me, like a way to cope with all of this. But you all have given us so many great tips on how to navigate through all of this. And so thank you so much. You know, it's like we're like slowly turning this page and getting back to a sense of normalcy. But I think it's so important to remind people that mental health matters, your happiness matters, and we are all humans. We feel the same emotions, and it can really make us sick if we don't talk about it.
Yeah, and we're all in this together, and I think that everyone's going through the same thing.
Bobby, your audio sounded a little funky there. You want to say it again?
Oh no, I said that we're all in this together, and that everyone's going through the same thing, and we can't forget that you're not the only one going through this. So you know, each one can help one. You know, it takes a village. So we all have to become the village to help each other out through this pandemic. And as things become back, I won't say back to normal, but the new normal. Because it's going to be a new normal for a while, that we just have to look at each other and say, okay, well, I got your back, you've got mine, and let's get through this together. And like I said, like you said, the tips that our panelists have given us are you know, beyond comparison to what anyone else can do for us. And this really opens up a good dialogue.
Yeah, and I was just going to conclude with, you know, just that awareness of the mind-body connection, that we need to be doing body scans and emotion scans, right? Just checking in with ourselves throughout the course of the day, recognizing how our emotions can vary, and also our physical state of mind and body can change and fluctuate based upon the situation also. I think it's important to think about that.
One last question that I did have for anyone. I think it's normal to feel unmotivated at times, and you feel like, what's wrong with me? What's going on here? I don't feel motivated. I'm just struggling. How do you know between the difference between a normal feeling of being sad and just unmotivated to really doing that self-examination? I need some help here.
I think that's what I was going to offer in terms of next steps or future steps, was, as a clinician, really just figuring out when it's time to get support that is beyond what it is that you've been doing on a normal basis. And so I think one of the ways in which we know is how it is that it shows up. So it may show up in our sleep, in terms of you're sleeping too much or sleeping too less. It may show up in our appetite, eating less or eating more. Our ability to want connection. So people may go into isolation mode where they don't feel as connected to other people, or they detach themselves from other people. They decline things that they usually would find fun. So oftentimes we would see it, but other people around us would see it and pay attention to it because they know how we usually operate. And you may notice a decline in several things. And I think it's important to have the conversation to say, hey, are you okay? Do you feel like you need some support? Do you think it may be beneficial for you to talk to a clinician or to talk to someone to kind of process what it is that's happening for you? Because we're all going to re-enter this world as it is today with things that we're carrying into it, right? So we're talking about the larger picture of the pandemic, but so much, to your point, Annie, has happened since March 2020 that we still haven't had opportunity to unload. And so I think it's really important to know that your journey back into this new experience will be different from the next person. While we are all in it together, we are all experiencing it differently, and that's okay. And so finding when you need support is going to be really key. So paying attention to yourself, paying attention to how it is that you're now interacting with people or not interacting with people, and really just taking just an acknowledgement of where you are and being okay and having an honest dialogue.
Valerie, last words?
I'm sorry. Oh, last words. Yeah, the only thing I would add to that also is that when you check in and acknowledge, give yourself permission, because a lot of the time we don't give ourselves permission. We will wait for others to validate it. Give yourself permission to feel however you feel, and then say, you know what, now I do need to assess, I need more. Like she was saying, I need more. I need to go talk with someone, but give yourself that permission. And that just comes when you literally slow down and check in.
Yeah, I think this has been awesome. You know, I believe we're getting ready to close out, but I just want to thank all of you for your input, your advice. I want to give you all a hand applause. I see me and Hanny just giving y'all applause for such a great job. Marcy Fairbanks, Valerie Brown, Dr. Fluid, awesome job. You know, and it really gives people a chance to understand that there's someone out there for them to talk to, resources to go to, and that they should not be afraid to say, look, I have a problem. You know, I'm going through something. I need some help, you know? So Annie, I'm gonna throw it back to you.
I think you said it best. I also want to give an opportunity to our panelists I feel like I've gained a village. I've got Marcy, Dr. Fluid, and Valerie now as part of my village. And so I want to give that opportunity to the participants as well. If you guys want to take a quick sec to talk about how people can reach out to you after this event.
Yeah, that would be great. So specifically for grief support, Capital Caring Health does have, like I said before, highly trained and qualified grief counselors who are available to offer individual counseling and support groups that are currently being offered through Zoom as we transition to returning to in-person visits. So we have an actual call center that I wanted to kind of put out there for everyone to call, and that number is 844, the number 4, and then grieve, 4383. So you just 447-4383 is the number to call. And so if you call this number, you're going to be able to connect directly with one of our grief support intake specialists, and they're going to identify through that conversation with you what your goals are, what your concerns are, and then either link you to our resources, or if we're not the right starting point, help connect you to some external resources that might be better suited for your specific situation. So I would encourage you to call today. We do also have an upcoming workshop that's actually being held this Saturday, and it is for individuals who are what we call newly bereaved. So they've had a death of a loved one in recent times, and this could actually be the starting point for support. Sometimes it can feel daunting to think about entering into a one-on-one relationship with a counselor, but this could be kind of that transition. So I encourage you to check out our website at capitalcaring.org and look at all of our different workshop options and speak to one of our intake specialists today.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not taking any private clients right now, but if you do have a student that is enrolled at Howard University, undergraduate, graduate, or professional, and are in need of mental health support, you can definitely reach out to the University Counseling Service. We provide mental health support to over 10,000 plus students at Howard, and really support them through their matriculation at Howard University. And so really just going to the website, howard.edu, typing in counseling service. You'll see all of our information as it relates to our front desk number, how to connect with us. We are still 100% virtual at this point. We also have a crisis line that's 24 hours and even works on weekends and holidays when the university is closed. And we take mental health very seriously at Howard University. And so please, 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 if you are matriculating at Howard, reach out to us. We are here for you.
Hi, I can be reached at ValerieBrownCoaching.com. We have a cadre of coaches to support life forward moving, challenging times, help you through any crisis you may have. So we are here for you to support you. So please feel free. You can email me directly at info@ValerieBrown.com.
Thank you so much, ladies. Bobby, thank you for being a part of this as well. We want to thank 96.3 WHUR Radio. It's been a blast, and really pleased to be a part of this. You know, it's just, again, a great conversation to be having. Hopefully we'll have more, and we will help erase the stigma. Also, a big special thanks to our sponsor, Capital Caring Health, who has a special announcement for us. And please help me welcome Laura Branker, the Vice President of Philanthropy for Capital Caring Health. Hi, Laura, take it away.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so very much. This town hall was incredibly impactful, informative, and inspirational. And if there's one key thing I would like everyone to know is that no family or person in our region should ever feel like they need to grieve alone. And that was definitely the key point from everyone on the panel. So at Capital Caring Health, as Marcy shared earlier, our professional grief counselors offer a variety of services that are absolutely free. And that's another point I really want to drill in, absolutely free to anyone in our region who's experienced a loss, whether it be a loss of a family member, a neighbor, a coworker, or even a beloved pet. We offer a variety of different therapy sessions that are either family or individual that provide a sort of careful counseling that either children or adults need. As Marcy mentioned earlier, there's a number and a contact number as well as the website. So that phone number again is 844-GRIEVE, 844-GRIVE. And the capitalcaring.org website is also a great resource. But as a community-based organization, if you feel inspired to give, to allow us to continue to do this work and expand the reach, so again, that no person in our region feels alone through the grieving process, please go to capitalcaring.org/give. So thank you so much for this town hall. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you again, everybody, for participating. We have, I think, fully displayed that there's help out there, resources out there. And as we conclude today's town hall on mental health, we're going to keep some important information on your screen. So be sure to take a few minutes to write it down, maybe take a picture of it and reference it. But yeah, we're going to leave that up for a few minutes here. But thank you again, everyone, for participating, and have a wonderful Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you.